more than 80 years in Texas, Lockheed Martin has been a pioneer in the field of versatile, high-performance defense and national security technologies, and a key important factor and contributor to the nation's space efforts nationwide. Lockheed Martin Texas operations support 22,000 direct and indirect jobs, 34,000 retirees from our veteran community, and employees that work in 4 main business areas throughout the state at more than 25 locations. With more than 4,000 employees just in the Grand Prairie area alone, Missiles Fire Control line of business brings highly skilled and technologically advanced jobs to the Dallas region. Today, we are so honored of hearing from Governor Greg Abbott as the 48th governor of this great state of Texas. Sir, you continue to be a leader who fights to preserve Texas values such as faith, family, and freedom. We appreciate that. Under Governor Abbott's strong leadership, the commitment to economic freedom and opportunity, and his careful stewardship of the 10th largest economy in the world, Texas continues to be the best state to live, work, and raise a family. And I would absolutely agree with that. Governor, I'd like to congratulate you also on winning the Site Selections Governor's Cup for a record-shattering 9th year in a row. This is a testament to your leadership and support of programs that expand economic opportunity in the Lone Star State. Your partnership with local, regional, and statewide economic development entities, including the Dallas Regional Chamber's Economic Development Team, help the Dallas region continue to be an economic engine for the state of Texas. Keep focus on keeping Texans safe and healthy during the pandemic will position our great state for years to come out of this and make us even stronger. Before his election in 2014, Governor Abbott was the 50th and longest serving Attorney General of Texas and previously served as Justice on the Texas Supreme Court and State District Judge in Harris County. A native Texan, avid sportsman, and hunter, Governor Abbott was born in Wichita Falls and raised in Duncanville. And after graduating from the University of Texas, Austin, he earned a law degree from Vanderbilt University Law School. Governor Abbott and his wife, Cecilia, a former teacher and principal, and the first Hispanic lady of Texas, married in 1981. Their daughter, Audrey, is in university at this time. Sir, I'm honored to welcome you, the governor, great state of Texas, Greg Abbott. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you, Zach. And also thank you for your tremendous company, what you do for Texas, but also for sponsoring today's event. What a great partner to have for the Dallas Regional Chamber. And let me thank everybody with the Dallas Regional Chamber. You know, one thing that Zach mentioned was the fact that Texas received the Governor's Cup last week, being the #1 state in the United States for the most corporate relocations and capital expansions in the United States of America. And one thing that I know, and that is the reason why we won that award, is because of the partnerships that we have with chambers across the state, like your chamber. And in fact, I think it may be your chamber that actually ranked #1 in the state of Texas for the most projects that contributed to Texas winning that Governor's Cup. I know this for a fact, and that is there's been basically no place in the United States of America that has been more active with regard to economic development over this past year. And it's really quite amazing when you think about it, because this past year was a year of a pandemic, a year when you would not think that we would have very much robust economic development. And yet Texas did. You know, and separate from this award, I'm sure another number many of you all are familiar with is the amount of investment in commercial real estate and commercial real estate development. And Texas ranked #1, and Dallas ranked #1 nationally with regard to commercial real estate development. And when you compare Texas to other states, the state that ranked #2 was about half of what Texas was. And again, a lot of this is because of things going on in Dallas. And you look at some of the corporate relocations to Dallas this past year, such as CBRE, for example, another Fortune 500 company added to your ranks. And you all know some other projects that are underway as we speak right now. And what we do know is that Dallas is more attractive than it's ever been. It's always been an attractive place, which is one reason why y'all have had so much success in economic development. But from what I hear from CEOs that I talk to around the entire country, Dallas is even more attractive than it's ever been. And I know the people that I'm talking to right now are a big reason for that success. So I applaud you and I thank you for what you've done. Listen, as it concerns other things, I could literally talk to you the entire day and not even bring you up to speed on what is going on. Because I do have to attend to other matters here in just a short period of time, let me address some topical issues that probably are on your mind and give you a deeper explanation about exactly what's going on so that you will be able to take this information and share this information with others as you continue to sell Dallas and to sell Texas. First, one of the most pressing issues is the Texas response to the winter storm that we just went through. What we've been involved in and what we continue to do is twofold. One is to diagnose exactly what happened so we are able to respond to it. And then second is to put into law and put into effect the solutions to make sure that something like this never happens again. And that means making sure that we prevent power outages in the winter, at the same time making sure we do so in ways that ensure we do not have power outages in the summer. Let me first explain to you exactly what happened, because it actually is quite simpler and a little bit different than what a lot of people hear in the media. There were several factors that led to the shutdown for multiple days of power. The first thing that happened actually was what's called operator error. It was a decision-making error by ERCOT, which actually was a decision contrary to their pre-planned decision-making process before the winter storm even came in. Before the winter storm came in, they had articulated to the public, as well as to me, that in the event that the amount of power available got close to the amount of power that is demanded, then they would go into rolling blackout so that there could be some areas subject to being blacked out for a few hours at a particular time, with it being a rolling basis. And what they were supposed to do is, as the differential between power supply and power demand got down to about 10,000 megawatts, they were then supposed to begin instituting those rolling blackouts. For reasons that we still do not know at this point in time, they didn't take that proactive measure to avoid the blackouts that we did sustain. Instead, they allowed it to get down to about 5,000 megawatts, which, as the ERCOT leader has explained, was dangerously and perilously close to having the entire grid shut down. And so because it did get so close, it turned out to be the equivalent of a speeding car going down the highway on an ice slick road and slamming on your brakes, which would lead to a car crash. In this case, because they slammed on the brakes, it led to an electrical grid crash. What they did by slamming on the brakes is, as opposed to imposing rolling blackouts, they took something like, it's either 12 or 14,000 megawatts of power off the grid all at once. When you had that amount of power taken off the grid all at once, it immediately triggered another about 10,000 more megawatts being shut down. When that happened, among the other things that were shut down were power generating facilities. And when the power generating facilities got shut down, they got frozen and were physically incapable of getting back up and running for several days. Those three things put together explain exactly why there were certain regions in the state of Texas that were without power for several days. So that's easy to identify. Let me tell you part of the solutions there, as well as part of the solutions on an ongoing basis. One is, when you have an operator error this catastrophic, you have to replace the operator, and that is taking place. Second, something that will not cost a penny to do and is an easy and essential fix is to make sure that there is a better structure going into a winter storm that prevents the shutdown of power generating facilities. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. As you all probably noticed and may know, when power got shut down, there are several areas that were not subject to shut down because they were pre-designated before a winter storm that their power would not be shut down. One would be downtown areas. As you saw, your downtown remain access to power. Another would be hospitals. Another would be police stations, things like that. One thing that was not plugged in to that power grid in advance to make sure that it would not be subject to being shut down are these power generating facilities. And so the people in charge of that are already making a listing of all of those power generation facilities across the entire state of Texas, making sure that in the event there is ever a shutdown in the future, it would not include power generating facilities. Because if that one thing had been done in advance, we may have had that initial 10 or 12,000 megawatts of shutdown, but the other megawatts would not have been shut down, and we would have taken a 1-day challenge, and it would have been over with as opposed to being a 4-day disaster. But while we are going about making those modifications to improve the power grid stability, we want to do so much more. One thing that you've heard us talk about that we will achieve, and that is to make sure that we do have winterization. And as many of you may have read, winterization was something that was discussed after the 2011 winter storm, and there were recommendations made as opposed to mandates and requirements made. And so we will take many of those recommendations and turn them into mandates, and we will add to them additional mandates with regard to winterization to make sure that we will not have a winter storm effect like this again. Another is to increase the energy and the energy generation capacity baseload to make sure that we will not be running out of power sources. Amazingly here, every source of power that we have and that exists was subject to shutdown. You had oil, you had gas, you had wind, you had solar, you had nuclear, and any type of power was compromised during the course of this. We want to make sure that we have plentiful power that we are able to tap into in the event that something like this happens again, and that means expanding the baseload capacity. Another thing that we're working on, you may have seen announcements about this overnight, but you've seen announcements about it over the past 2 weeks, and that is to address the electricity pricing-based issues that too many consumers in particular have been on the receiving end of spiked bills that they should not be subject to. And we're looking for solutions to make sure that doesn't happen again. Two last things, and one is one of the, quote, recommendations to the PUC was concern enforcement, but it was not a requirement. And we want to make sure we add real teeth to the enforcement side to make sure that everybody that is required to be in compliance with the power grid standards will be in compliance. And then let's talk about a larger goal that's very important that we achieve this session, but also very important that leaders like myself discuss with chambers. Because of the great job that the Dallas Regional Chamber is doing, you're bringing so many more people into your region, as well as into the state of Texas, who are tapping into the power grid. Because you're doing that, as well as other regions across the state of Texas, that means that we will have greater population as well as a greater number of employers and employees in the state of Texas going forward. That means, in turn, that we as a state must have greater power generating capacity to meet the growing needs in the state. And we will come out of the session making sure that we do have that power generating capacity so that our future needs will be met. So as bad as it has been to have gone through this winter storm, the silver lining that will come out of it is that Texas, coming out of the session, will be far better positioned to make sure that we will have the power generating capacity in both winter and summer times to make sure that businesses and homes will be able to be up and running in safe environments, regardless of what may be taking place. Second, another issue that I know is very important to businesses as well as to individuals, and that is to make sure that we safely and swiftly get through the challenges that have been posed by the pandemic. It's amazing when you think back to 1 year ago today. 1 year ago today, most of you, maybe all of you, may not have ever even known what PPE was, and certainly had no access to anything like COVID test kits or access to exactly how to respond to it, and definitely no access to medical treatments for it, and especially things like vaccines. And then fast forward to where we are today. And we see that we are administering about, on average, 200,000 or more vaccines per day. And you see that we have medical treatments such as these antibody therapeutic treatments that are able to make sure that if someone does get COVID, they're going to be able to get a superior treatment that will help them overcome the challenges very quick. And we, the medical community, are on the cusp of actually coming out with a pill that's very similar to Tamiflu that treats COVID. It's now gone through stage 2. It's now in stage 3 trials, but it's effective through stage 2 trials. And it's a 5-day pill regimen. And if anybody got COVID, they would take this pill like someone would take Tamiflu if they had the flu virus. And the studies show they have an amazing level of success. And I could go on with other medical treatments, but the bottom line is this. We're far better positioned today than we have been at any time. And the numbers show. If you look at hospitalizations, the hospitalizations have been plummeting extremely low. We've been below 5,000 hospitalizations for an extremely long period of time now. Yesterday, we had the lowest positivity rate that we've had since September. It was about 6.09%. It's been on a downward trajectory day by day for well over 2 weeks now and moving in the right direction. So we got hospitalizations down, positivity rate down, the total number of cases down, the daily case number is down. Every single metric that exists is moving in the right direction. The important fact is actually what I'm about to tell you. And that is, even though the numbers are looking good in Texas, what we look at is numbers in other states as well as other countries to see what the response is like there. And if you look at a graph of every state in the United States, as well as graphs and charts from countries or regions like the UK, for example, we can see exactly when vaccines begin to be implemented and the downward trend in hospitalizations, case numbers, and positivity rate, whether it be in Texas or some other state in the United States, or Texas and the UK, or Texas and some other country, the graphs look identical. And so when you look at the total number of people, which today we're well over 7 million people in Texas who have received a vaccine, and the number of people that, according to the CDC, who have already recovered from COVID, which is well over 10 million people. And then when you look at the fact that we will be doing on the low side 1 million vaccines per week, on the high side about 2 million per week, and growing as the weeks progress, you can see that quite literally there are fewer and fewer people who in Texas who can contract the COVID disease. And if they do, we have better tools to make sure they're able to deal with it. And so the opening process, I realize is going to be something that will be subject to the individual decision-making process based upon each individual's as well as each business's perception of what they need to do to maintain safety for themselves, for their employees, and for their family members, et cetera. And that's the important thing. And that is the decision-making process is exactly where it belongs right now. And that is with regard to individual responsibility. We do strongly urge and encourage people to continue to wear face masks whenever they go out, even if they have been vaccinated. But we also know that there are ways in which we can ensure that we do open up safely and help people restore their livelihoods and help people restore and overcome many mental health challenges that have occurred over the past year because of these shut-ins and shutdowns. But that said, let me, because I got the signal, I'm out of time, let me mention to you all just a couple of things real quick. I want to make sure you know that we're focused on, especially some that relate to businesses. One is we must pass civil liability reform this session for all the businesses and individuals that did open up to make sure that they're not subject to any type of liability. Your help in that regard is very important. We need the chamber to be advocates for that to make sure that all the businesses that you work with every single day will benefit from that civil liability reform. Another thing that you know is an emergency item of mine is to make sure that we expand broadband access across the state. There are some corners in the Dallas Regional Chamber that still don't have adequate access to broadband. And of course, there's some corners in some less populous areas of the state of Texas where that is the case. This is a pro-business move, but it's also a pro-education move, a pro-healthcare move to make sure that we're going to be able to expand broadband access with the tools, the strategy, and I believe we have the funds to make sure that that is achieved. We want to see regulatory relief. And let me mention this one last item, and then I will have to go. It's an item that a lot of people are unaware that we're working on this session, but I view it to be very important for the future of business in Dallas and in the state of Texas. We are seeking to establish what are called business courts. There are many other states in the United States that have business courts, and they work as specialty courts. And so this will be focused on the state-based judicial system, not the federal system. And in the state-based system, the way that it would work is subject to the way the legislature would finally agree upon it, but it would be along the lines that current existing elected judges would be selected to serve on these business courts, and these would be expertise type courts. So as opposed to just randomly being chosen to go into some district court judge who may or may not have any specialty or expertise or knowledge or even care about a business dispute type situation. Instead, we will have specialists in this area who will devote the time and the attention that disputes need to make sure that there's going to be a fair and equitable justice for everybody involved in the process. And I strongly urge you also to support those efforts. So with that, I am going to have to run on to my next meeting, but I do want to thank you all very, very much for the time with you today. And I look forward to getting back together with you all really soon. Thank you all very much.
Governor, thank you for making the time to be with us today. You're the busiest person in Texas, and it means a lot that you spent time with us today. It really does. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. You know, I could actually get a pay raise if I got paid $7.25 per hour. My paycheck would go up.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your leadership. Thanks for your kind words about the Dallas Regional Chamber. We love our partnership with you and your team. Thank you for the explanation of the energy challenges and the update on COVID and the vaccines. We need more vaccines in Dallas, in the Dallas area.
Coming your way.
Okay.
Coming your way.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the guarantee. We love your support of liability reform and broadband access. So wonderful. Great to hear from you. And thank you so much for all you're doing. We know you're working really hard on behalf of all of us and all the people of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Big thank you to our DRC public policy team, led by Matt Garcia, our senior vice president, Joe Euler, Morgan Christian. They did a great job of putting these 2 days together. You know, democracy works best when it's a two-way street. Today's an example of that. There was a lot of give and take between our elected leaders and those they represent. So appreciate Senator Nathan Johnson being with us, Representative Morgan Meyer, Jay Dyer, the Speaker's Chief of Staff, Representative Chris Turner, Representative Rafael Anchia, and a big thanks to Representative Victoria Niave for making a special address to our group today as the co-chair of the Dallas delegation. Big thanks to our sponsors. We can't do this without you. Lockheed, Toyota North America, Texas Instruments, Fidelity Investments, and UT Arlington. Thank you so much for allowing this to happen. These are important days where we get with our elected leaders during the beginning of a session. Also, a big thank you to our chair, Michelle Vopny, who is the managing partner of Ernst & Young. We have her working pretty hard this year in a dual role now as the chair of the chamber. Scott Orr of Fidelity Investments and Holly Reed of Ryan LLC are the co-chairs of our Public Policy Advisory Group. So they work really hard on our behalf as well and on behalf of all of you. So thank you all for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you soon again, I'm sure. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.